Villagers, thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. Africans, we want to be free, but until we are able to control the narrative, take charge of everything that is here, we can never get the freedom, because whatever that we have here, people sit outside of the continent and they regulate everything. Everything is done per what they want and not what we the Africans think is right. According to our brother, if Africans we don't fight to control the narrative, we will never see whatever development that we are looking for. The Africans are not an object of charity. The international bodies meddle in everything that has to do with the African. But whenever he talks about what our leaders are doing that is wrong in Africa, these people always sit down and praise him. But the moment he switches to what they are doing, the atrocities they have committed and they are still committing in Africa, how they are using whatever to destroy our water bodies underground, then they say he's targeting investors. He do not want this. They find every reason to see whatever that he's saying concerning them to be negative. Because it is the African leader, it is good. But when it is about what they are doing to us that is harmful, then they try to cover these things up. That's our leaders. Always look to the West. And this is the narrative. We believe that everything that is coming from them is perfect.
The intervention in Iraq was couched in very benign terms. The intervention in Libya was couched in benign terms. I could give you 100 interventions where the justification, objectively speaking, was on the basis that there was evidence either of genocide or evidence. I'm sitting in Rwanda. The international community stood by as the genocide against the Tutsi happened. Yet in the same year, they were intervening in West Africa. The construct of benign and malign is controlled and related to the question of narrative and strategic self-interest. We've often not paid enough attention, and thank you, Chairperson of the African Union, for educating us on how the international fora of decision-making, the Security Council, and other fora, including at some stage, how we transact within the International Criminal Court and other platforms. That evidence, and that was my point, we don't control data, we don't control digital platforms, we therefore are not controlling narrative in both analog and digital forms. What can practically be done? We do need to speak to Europeans, not as victims, because the erasure of the contribution in European consciousness of Africans to modernity and civility has constructed a white supremacist view that sees the evolution of modernity as a singularly European contribution. And it is only now that our young researchers are beginning to excavate the contributions of black people, of Africans, towards inventions. Because until now, the province of economy was not the province of black people. In my country, in Zimbabwe, when land was taken, a British court gave a judgment that said, the question before them and who owned the land, they said, one thing is certain, it cannot be the native because the native has no sense of ownership. It was on that basis that land was taken. Number two, on the question of economics, even we pejoratively only talk about our people as informal law, informal economy, yet the informal economy is formal. That's how India developed through its cottage industry. That's how we have a psychotic addiction to colonial definitions of what, and that's why Professor Ashraf is correct. It's not just a narrative about our contribution historically. It's a narrative about our contribution now. Our young people who developed M-Pesa, which is now being used globally, who developed Ushahidi, which has been used by over 300,000 organizations, including the Japanese, the US military, and the NATO forces, are never sufficiently credited. Why? Because it is not in the current psyche of most Europeans possible that Africans are anything else except the object of charity that deserve our mercy and our pity. Why? Because they are governed by tyrants, right? Or Africans are incapable of ethics. And we've constantly said that Switzerland, which received the Abacha loot, which received the loot from the then Zaire and now DRC, has constantly been ranked in anti-corruption indices as the cleanest country in the world. PLO and I are lawyers. The receipt of stolen property is theft at law. How is it that you will have Nigeria and Kenya ranked so far, and yet the country that receives the money ranked so up? I think that if you're changing narrative, you also have to change behavior. Our African leaders and citizens constantly confirm the European caricature, an object of pity. When we come into this spaces, we can never transact revolution in courtesy. I like to be civil, to be courteous, right? But each time I start pointing to atrocities committed by African governments, the Europeans and the Americans cheer me up. Each time I refer to the historical atrocities and continuing atrocities committed first by governments and by companies that are dumping cyanide into our underground water and nuclear waste, right? You know what it is said? This is retrogressive. It's undermining investment. It's again, listen, we cannot win the narrative battle by arguing in pockets. They are happy us talking about our localized, indigenized oppression. They are never happy us talking about the question of distribution and redistribution of the global economy, of global power. And what Nkrumah and others realized in 1963 at the founding conference, if Africa is not represented, if Africa does not own its narrative, but you can't own your narrative if your leadership is totally disconnected from its people. You can't own your narrative if your intellectuals are totally disconnected. We have underinvested in rural areas and slums where the majority of our people are. In fact, we treat them as security threats and they are over-policed. Number two, we have underinvested in our academic and research institutions. We'd rather bring McKinsey and bring Deloitte and Touch. They will help us do AU reform. Why? Because there are no African consultancies that we know. Even if they exist, we have no relationship with them to help us with AU reforms, with anything else. And this is not a pronouncement on McKinsey or Deloitte. It's a pronouncement on ourselves. We have not, as a leadership, begun to recognize that the native is capable of knowledge. The native is capable of economy. The native is capable of invention. You can't change the narrative if the starting premise is we're trying to be like Europe and to catch up. We can't change the narrative when we're constantly trying to learn from others without understanding, and I'll end with that. What William Tunga said, the former Chief Justice of Kenya. He says, let's not engage in this romanticist view that there can only be one way to learn. We first must indigenize knowledge. That's what I said. Learn from our culture and traditions. Number two, we must diversify who we learn from. We can not only learn from the West. We need to learn from everybody who has something to teach. Number three, we must domesticate what we learn. If we're going to learn anything, let's domesticate. I think the chairperson and the minister said it's consciousness. Narrative is first and foremost by realizing self-worth, self-belief, and looking inward so that when you look outward, it is to supplement not a vacuous state of nothingness and inferiority, but it is to supplement a very stable, solid foundation where your culture, where your values, where your value for people is important.
We have to learn from everybody. Africans, according to him, are detached from their leaders. The leaders are somewhere and the people are somewhere. These people always do things to please everybody except the African. We have to rise up to fight for ourselves. Nobody will come into the continent to do whatever we want. The leaders have never been in our interest and they will never be in our interest. They are there to serve their masters and they will make sure that whatsoever that they want is what they are going to do. We have to stop making it look as if these people are the standard people in this world. So for that matter, we have to always be like them. We have to stop that mentality to the point that even the African today as we are raising our children, have the mentality that the African way of bringing up a child is a cake. Go to the West, go to America. They don't do this to children. But do we know how the children ends up in America and the West? Must we throw everything that makes us a people away because of other people? Our leaders will always sit down and tell us, you go to this, go to that, things are done this way. Must it always be them? Don't we have our own values, our culture, our customs? Don't we have things that govern us as a people? They leave their people, homeless people, hungry people. There are people who can't even afford medical care, but just because they cover all these things up and come claiming they are giving us aid, they are giving us water, they are doing this, we think that these people love us so much. And for that reason, we have to throw everything away and be like them. Chinese are not fighting to be like other people. It's only the African that is fighting to be like other people. We always try to import things from other people without considering that we are different from these people. We can never be like them. So why don't we put in measures that suit the environment in which we live in? Must it always be them and not the African? Then what makes us a people? We have to rise up. And if we continue to leave our fate in the hands of these people, I wonder why we are giving birth. Because we think about today without thinking about tomorrow. What we have to leave behind for our children are what these people are fighting day in, day out to destroy. But you, in Africa, you are busy having children, yet you are not fighting to protect the lives of your children when you are not there. We have a long way to go as a people because we don't know the game these people are playing on us. And the people we have entrusted everything into their hands are the ones they are using to destroy their future. We are the only ones that can set ourselves free. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we make African great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world. In Africa.